Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May meeting for the Council on Aging.
Good morning.
Just want to remind everybody that you're being recorded, so anything that you say is on the permanent record. I think because we have some guests here, I'd like you to introduce yourselves, and then I will have the council introduce themselves to you. Kat, you want to start with you?
Sure.
Good morning, Dave Snatch, I trustee with the library in capital planning.
David Pollock from Adams Architects and Planners.
Welcome. Alan, you're welcome. This is an open meeting. Anyone can join us. Kathy Hunt, one of our auxiliary members of the Council on Aging.
Diana, or resident in the school.
That's on member.
COA, I'm looking for the Senior Center Director.
Ann Vander Fleet, Secretary, COA.
Peg Noguera, co-chair.
Earl Perlman, co-chair.
Carol Cotras, Treasurer of the Council on Aging.
Carolyn Ross, Vice President of Friends of Mental Elders, and a member of the Library Rectory Committee. Karen Mead, Associate Member. Karen Sibley, President, Friends of Mental Elders.
Elena Brigos, Select Board Liaison to the Council on Aging.
Joseph Lee, member of the COA. Andrew Nicol, volunteer member of the Capital Planning Committee for the purposes of this. We kicking off a special project.
Well, welcome, everybody. We're going to take care of a couple of real quick things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy and Abacus. Okay, let's get the reports out of the way. Did everybody have a chance to read the secretary's report that Ian sent out already?
No.
Okay, take a few minutes to look it over then. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
We could practice as long as the AI helps. I'm looking along with the little stuff. I had this whole thing by the end of the meeting, right?
Is everybody good with this? Can I have a motion to accept the secretary's report, please?
I make a motion to accept the Secretary's report.
Thanks, Carol. Diane seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
We're just going to do the treasurer's report and then we'll let them have the floor. Carol, run the treasurer's report, please.
Okay, it's dated May 20th, 2026, and this is for April. COA gift account, the donations for the month were $191. And the COA food pantry account, donations, there were 2 personal donations for $125. Expenses for Market Basket was $1,626.65 for stock. WB Mason, $596.39. And that is the treasurer's report that I have at this time.
Okay. So we had some expenses, but that's okay. All right. Okay, we have a motion to, who wants to approve that?
Okay.
Still, second, down to sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Just a note, the Teams link that's on your agenda doesn't go to this video, it goes to a different meeting, so I can't share my screen. So if you invite me to this meeting or go to the meeting that is on here.
Why don't you just invite him so we can all see it? I think that's what you did, Andy, right? You just joined us that way?
And I was intending to.
Is there the one on the agenda too? So it's just Andy and I in a room by ourselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nikki. I do that. So it's gonna be like, you can move it.
Document,
No, I'm not here.
Whatever this is about.
well, a lot of it's gonna be probably in here. That's what I'm
I had,
thinking.
okay, all right, so going to this report, David, like to join. So just, thanks everyone. So I'm Jeremy Stoll, and town administrator, it's David Pollack, Abacus Architects and Planners. Just to do a brief recap, as we ended after the second debt exclusion question failed on the ballot, I received a bunch of questions from the general public saying, you know, yes, we looked at 3 North Ave. What about these other places in town? What else can we possibly do? Have we explored all these options? I think the answer to most of that was we've done that in all or in part, but having a focused study after 2 failed ballot questions was, I thought it was good to re-ask the question, re-explore it, and stuff. So we used at the end of our American Rescue Plan Act. It's the last bit of our federal money contract with Abacus to come and do a alternative site analysis. Go through 4 different things. So first we looked at 3 North Avenue. So we have a
Yeah, what is that?
I'm hearing some,
make sure yours is
Oh, it's reshuffled.
All right, thank you. Perfect. So we went through 4 things. One, the already proposed site at 3 North Ave, which has a cost estimate from PMC through Micrometric Architects. So when we looked at 3 other sites, we used the same cost estimate. So we had the apples to apples in that sense. We didn't want to get bogged down in the process. We wanted to say using the same cost estimators as the original project. We looked at an expansion at the Taft Public Library, so that's 29 North Ave at the top of the map. We looked at an expanding place for the senior center at 62 Providence, and then we looked at 8 Morrison Drive. Public safety, I guess, the shell building, third floor, behind the fire station. So we're going to go through the analysis here. Dave's going to walk through what he has permitted, but what I'm expecting from this group is to not necessarily something today, but to be able to come to a consensus on preference on what you want the path forward to be your building. So I sent a note out this morning to the COA and to the library trustees that says, I've said this before, but for facility plans, even if it's not in the same building, these are 2 facility plans for community buildings that need to be discussed together by select board. Dates aren't necessarily tied, but we need to have a comprehensive approach to capital planning in town. And these are 2 facilities projects that need to work hand in glove. So I'm hopeful that in the next next few weeks, we can have a joint meeting between the Council on Aging, Select Board, and Library Trustees to discuss medium-term facilities plans. So please see my email on that, probably in that sense, I would expect this board to come to Select Board and say, of these 4 sites, this is our preferred path forward, and why. Or you can look at a 5th site. That's but we're going to go through these 4 today. Just a little preview, ruled out the Morrison Drive site. So I'm going to pull up our matrix. There.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here and your acquaintance and be part of this conversation. We have very much enjoyed doing this site evaluation and trying to, kind of come to a place where we can help you with your decision making. Of the 4 sites, we rapidly came to the conclusion that the Morrison Drive site should be taken off the table, should be ruled out. And the reason the reason that it was there is there's a whole building shut with some site utilities brought in, and so it seemed as if that investment could be leveraged. So that's why it was on the table. The reason it should be taken off the table is you really can't get there effectively. The current passage, there's a constructed causeway, a built-up rock, driveway that goes from the fire station apron back to the site that was apparently built without any kind of conservation permits. And so it's even questionable, but the fire department is not open to having non-safety personnel cross their pathway for their trucks. And so there's really no way to get there. There is a town-owned property that was acquired with CPA funds at 76 Providence, but to construct a driveway all the way back there would be very expensive. And so, and the building itself, the site is constrained. The building didn't seem to be particularly useful for these purposes. If anybody wants to talk about it further, we can, but we rapidly kind of came to the conclusion that that wasn't a good site. All 3 of the other sites are very interesting. And what I'm not going to sort of talk about the site plans and the layouts and all of that. We did concept design for the 2 additional sites of how would you expand the existing facility and how would you add on to next to the library. Those are in the report. But I really want to kind of talk numbers and logistics and, a high-level decision. So as Jeremy said, we went back to PM&C, who's a cost estimator that Advocacy has worked with for years and years and years. And we asked them to use the same building specifications for, how the building would be clad and fitted out and to get apples to apples, and then to estimate what we had drawn for building and site at the library and at the senior center. And then also to go back to the estimate that they produced in 2024 for the 3 North Avenue site. And the technical term is to escalate that price forward to comparable timing, because construction costs are inflation is enormous and has been for many, many years in Massachusetts. For public buildings, it's way past the normal rates of inflation, how much it escalates. So roughly speaking, they estimated the hard construction cost of the 3 projects with the exact same size building, all the same program, the same size, for the Council on Aging site at about $8 million, a little under $8 million, at the library site, a little under $10 million, and at the 3 North Avenue site, a little under $12 million. So it's about $2 million difference at each site, and this is bid. This is contractor bid, hard construction costs. It doesn't include any soft costs. So your total project cost that you would need to make funds available for would be above.
Can you press soft costs for a second? what makes up soft costs?
Okay, so the major contributors to soft costs are the architecture and engineering fees, the the independent owner's project manager fees, which is required by the Commonwealth for any public project with a hard cost of about $1.5 million. You might pay 8 to 10% for the architect, and you might pay 4 to 5% for the owner's project manager. You absolutely need to budget a construction contingency. Because you have your bid, but there almost certainly will be change orders, and you need to have funds available to fund those additional unanticipated costs. Often they are, they're digging in the ground and they find an asbestos-lined pipe, a drain pipe that nobody knew was there, and then you have an asbestos buildup that you know. Whatever happens, there's 3 kinds of change orders that you need contingency for. There are unforeseen conditions. There are things that are either errors or omissions, things that weren't on the drawings that need to be done because the drawings are never perfect. And then there are owner-initiated scope changes, which often can be quite large, where you guys just decide you want to do something different. And then you get a price for it, you decide to have it. So a construction contingency, a responsible construction contingency for a project like this, maybe it should be a little higher when you're doing a senior center site where you've got an existing building, a little lower on the North Ave, where it's just a green field. But I wouldn't ever recommend going into a project with a construction contingency of less than 5%. So it's 5% or more. So already we're up to 10%, 4%, 5%. We're already up to 19%. Then you have during construction, you have all kinds of testing, verification. For public bid projects, the sort of a pencil number at concept phase is often a 30%. Multiplier. So take the hard cost and multiply it by 1.25 or 1.3 or 1.35, somewhere in that 25 to 35%. If you wanted to really tighten your belt and not budget quite that much, okay, but that would be what I would say if you're calculating the total project cost and you can have some.
Yeah, looking at those numbers that brings in the 62 Providence Street, about $10,300,000 change. And North Avenue Library facility comes in 12.6 roughly, 12.7. And if you're looking at North Avenue Greenfield, well, that's the corner, 15.2.
And the reason the 15 for North Ave varies so much from the previous number is soft costs were not calculated in a robust way.
Some of them were in the addition, but that's incidental. Wait a minute. It was hard and soft. No, not compared to apples to apples. I think some of the soft costs, like some of the contingencies were a little bit. But to your point, looking at real hard costs, so let's just throw that out. It becomes 10.3, 12.6, and 15.2.
So the 3 sites. The senior center site jumps out as highly attractive because of cost. It's just, and what I did want to say about the hard cost numbers, it's about a $2 million increment difference between each of the 3. But what's really important is when you look at it, and we put a chart right at the beginning to make this clear, 75% of that incremental cost difference each time is site costs, not building costs. So the building cost differences are not insignificant. It's about a $500,000 difference between estimated cost of enlarging the senior center and building an attached building onto the library, independent attached building that could share, whatever. And then again, about a $500,000 to the building on the 3 North Avenue site, but it's $1.5 million difference between the 3 sites. And I think the simplest and best way to understand why there's such a huge site cost difference is how much site you are working. And the senior center has the advantage and disadvantage here of having not enough land, very little site. And so if there's nothing to work, there's almost no land to work on. You're not going to spend a lot of money on it. You're going to save a lot of money. However, you flip that coin and you say, well, but we need those site facilities to have a functional senior center going forward. Then you basically need to add land from the highway barn or 52 Providence site that's been acquired through CDA funding for towns, so not available for a senior center, but conceptually could be made available. If
There's 1 acre. 1 acre.
Right, so currently that piece of land could not be used for senior center purposes because it was purchased with CPC funds, but you could reallocate those funds.
So one acre, so this happened, sorry, David asked me to do this yesterday.
Jeremy, I'd like you to speak a little bit louder because we're competing with the air conditioning.
Sure, so I learned this morning, David asked me about it yesterday, so I talked with the CPC chair this morning, so 1 acre of that land was purchased with general funds. Okay. For general government purposes, specifically identified for senior center stuff. I didn't realize that, so there is 1 acre of land available for senior centers. They're at the 50 schools.
Okay, so again, you have this kind of two sides of the coin. That with an additional acre available at the senior center, conceivably there's enough land to have adequate parking. You can put you could put enough parking on an acre of land for sure. You can typically get about 3 parking spaces on 1,000 square feet, roughly. Not a lot of landscaping in that, but still. So then an acre is 42,000 square feet. So in theory, if you completely built out an acre as a parking lot, you could get 120 parking spaces, which is not what's required for the seniors. So, but then you do have to escalate. The site development cost of the senior center site is going to go up. And is it going to be the same as the library site, approach the cost of the library site? We don't know, but it would be higher than, you'd be spending more money on site to meet your site program. So
Someone has a question behind you.
What's the rules of questions? Can anybody ask a question?
I think it's important if he's on a specific topic to ask the question then, only because how are you going to go back after? Go ahead, Alan.
Street, right? So is that like, are they just letting us park?
Yes.
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
The current owner has allowed us to do that. That could change tomorrow. There's nothing. It's from the goodness of their heart.
So they're gonna have that next year.
Right. We'd like to build a center where we weren't having seniors crossing that busy street.
No, I think we walk across that street.
Very good.
So Dave's talking about having an additional acre.
I hate to see the neighborhood land going grass.
Well, not saying the whole thing going. Anyway, continue, please.
So, on the parking topic, you had 2 successive designs for the 3 North Avenue site. A more ambitious one that was then scaled back for the second round of voting. This is the second scheme, this is the second design. This is the first design, more ambitious design. The second design, I counted up the parking spaces yesterday and it shows, it could have more obviously, but it shows 79 parking spaces. So I assume that's what your program is for the senior centers.
No, that's because it was going to be a senior and community center. So we expected more of the public coming to the center because senior and community, there'd be functions going all the time. And sometimes there would be a need of more parking spaces. I don't believe the senior center is looking for 79 parking.
Well, but I think that's but the program is still senior and community center.
Yes.
So then the parking program that we're sort of agreed we're targeting is 79 parking spaces more or less. That would, that's the kind of Goldilocks of what you're looking for. You don't want to pay, you don't want to do much paving, and you also don't want to not be able to have that. So, the design that we showed for the 62, the current, Providence, 62 Providence Street, current senior center, only showed about 27 parking. In my conversation with Jeremy yesterday, he mentioned that he had spoken with a member of the Conservation Commission, so this is not the voice of the commission, who indicated that it would be perhaps likely that the commission would allow asphalt construction up to the 25-foot no-build setback line to the intermittent stream, the wetland. It's not just the property that the senior center is on, but there is an intermittent stream right down the property line on Highway Barn side, and then it cuts across behind the site.
And we have
So-
no bridge that goes.
Yeah, so I did a quick sketch looking at, okay, if you could expand asphalt to as close as 25 feet, how much parking, if you built a bigger parking lot at more expense that wrapped around the back of the proposed larger building, and I came to 40 parking spaces, 41. So it still doesn't fulfill the program. But with an additional acre on the other side, presumably, another schematic would be developed to work on that site. So that site is, in that sense is in play if you have enough land with an additional acre. The other major factor that's very much something that you guys all need to do is that you have to move out for at least a year. I mean, a year is a good number to pencil. And you need to find what's called swing space and set up the senior center and the food pantry somewhere else while construction is happening. And so that's both a cost in dollars, which could include transportation, which could include, you have to factor in that soft cost. That's another soft cost, is swing space, and what it takes to operate elsewhere. And it's just inconvenience. It's obviously a lot nicer to have a brand new completed facility that's fully furnished and everything to go somewhere else, and then you just move over there on a day, move your computers over, and senior center has uninterrupted operations, which brings me back to my soft cost summary, how you get to 30% from 19, which is there's a category that everybody calls FF&E. So FF&E, which is another one of those like head splitting acronyms, but it means furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And when you build a new facility, you're well advised to replace all, to basically get new furniture, fixtures, and equipment. I think if you look around the senior center and you say, we're going to have a brand new building, this is the furniture we're going to put in there, everybody's jaw's going to, feel really sad. So again, you need a budget for that. It's all stuff that goes above what you pay the general contractor.
Before we go to that, do you have any experience from prior construction projects, what the swing property would be for roughly size of 5,000, 6,000 square feet?
So all my experience on your side of the table, which is about 30 years of municipal, town governance experience, is in Brooklyn. And so the numbers don't correlate. So swing space in Brookline costs millions of dollars.
Right.
And it wouldn't in Mendon. I don't really know what it would cost you guys to relocate the senior center.
I don't know, we don't.
We probably try the Unitarian Church right up the street.
That's not because you're big enough.
I know, I'm just saying, that's probably what comes to mind first. Probably because I think the cost would be,
There's not a lot available, really.
Kathy has a question.
Consider building, consider building up on the garage. There's a second thing.
What we've been assuming is that the garage would be replaced, the new construction, and expanded. We never could get our hands on any kind of a drawing of the septic system, where it's located. In fact, just FYI, there are no drawings of the senior center. The entire building was constructed without drawings or a building. We just built it.
Yeah.
And that's what you have. And we don't even have drawings of the later edition, which is the garage and the rear house. So anyway, they limited information. The assumption is you have to, that it's probably time to reconstruct the second septic system anyway, and you reconstruct it further back in the site. Yeah, and I believe that was in the instruction of the boss estimated that they should figure out. We can check, but I think that, yes, it does have.
I have a question. Can I have your opinion of what you think the value is of the current senior center? Because let's say we decided we were gonna want one of the other sites, then that building has value to the town. In other words, we're looking at this amount of money, and the other two, the library and the North Avenue, we would be vacating that building. Therefore, that building has value to the town. If we're gonna try and push which way we wanna go, we would like to say there's a value to the town of so many $1 million.
Venture in any kind of a value number, I think that it's a good problem to have
Yes,
for the town, which is how to repurpose it. And is it a surplus asset that should be disposed of through sale, or does the, highway department and other kind of municipal service, does it become, does the building department and the, and all the inspectors and everything, and that becomes where you go for permits, or I think for the select board, for the whatever, building committee, capital committee, just, trying to think about, would it, do you need space for other municipal facilities that includes a garage? I think the other piece of it is, in terms of trying to reduce the cost of the senior center, a piece of that conversation with advocates was, could you remove the food pantry from the senior center program? There is resistance to that because a lot of the food pantry staffing is by seniors, and it's very much a part of the current operations to have the food pantry in the same building as the senior center. That works well, but if you said, well, let's just leave it there with other municipal services, we can build a smaller building for the senior center, have a more attractive package to bring to the voters. That's kind of in your court as well. So, so I think that's kind of the existing building. If you could swallow relocating and swing space, the value of the existing construction from a new building and code compliance point of view is nominal, other than the foundations, the basic, site work and the basement and the concrete. That's all kind of great and reusable, expanding on it. The vertical construction above it, not a whole lot. Energy code requirements, moving partitions around and everything. You strip it down, you've got sort of no plumbing left, no electrical left, no roof left, no insulation, siding, all of that stuff is 100% replaced when you're doing something like this. So that, but again, the building cost was $500,000 lower than building a new building.
I had a sense on the demolition side, looking at the presentation. It seemed to be extremely low, unless it's in the site cost. I had to tell you, demolition, reconfiguration, demolition of both that building and the rectory at the library seemed to be very low experience.
I don't really have a comment on that. I mean, I think that the senior center was built recently enough that lead and asbestos.
I wasn't worried about the issue of asbestos. So
Just removable.
just remove it. I think it's like $15,000.
That certainly seems low to me. I'm not quite sure why it would be quite so low, but
I'm just curious.
we tend to have a lot of confidence in the M&C and their ballparking, but
I'm just curious. the same with,
What page were you on that you saw that?
it's into the details, very in the
Yeah,
details.
what page though? Just tell me, oh, you don't remember. Okay, it's okay, then never mind.
From my memory, 15,000.
Okay, I'll trust it.
So the library center. I mean, I think you could build the facility next to the library, attached to the library. You could collaboratively look at how much isolation versus potential for shared use. I think mostly there would be two independent facilities, certainly the way we sketched it, but public meetings, larger functions, certainly there are some things where you could really take advantage. I think that with a larger parking lot on the backside, I think that would start to become much more of a front to the shared facilities. They could be designed with a shared entrance. You could look for opportunities, and I think around entrance and control, there might be opportunity for staffing efficiencies to not need to have somebody at the desk for both at the entrance, but anyway, you could look for operational efficiencies in shared use, custodial, after hours operation. I mean, these are you could call them marginal because they're not your librarians, but it adds up.
Some
Right?
shared
So,
service.
Bill, just to circle back on your question, on page 39, there's a summary that demolition of the garage and the space above it is $15,000. And then when we get into the detail for demolition on the 64 the 62 properties, there's like another $30,000, I want to say, dollars. So we're looking more than $50,000.
Okay. It still seems low, but it's still good. Thank you.
Just a general question. In both the 62 Providence and Taft, the senior center is entering from the rear where the topography is lower. If we look to redesigning the North Avenue property so that it is similarly situated, would that, in your opinion, reduce the cost?
It might make more sense to just finish with the library and then go to the talking about the Free North Avenue site and how to what blue sky thinking about how that might be brought, the cost might be brought in. So in our site we did get some feedback from the conservation agent about the viability of expanding use of the library site. She seemed very comfortable with the idea that there could be additional pavement, which would mean additional stormwater management capacity. She thought that could all be done using natural absorption without structural Coltech, storage, like a modest cost. That the well setbacks could be retained. That that there's enough space there to double up the parking. And so our parking diagram shows approximately 90 parking spaces. I think you definitely have a conversation with the library about you're looking carefully at operational schedules at afternoon and night about whether 79 is the right number for senior and community center, whether 90 is adequate to deal with both library and community center or not. I'm hearing none of that.
I know that the library already doesn't have quite enough parking when there are bigger events. So, and the events at the library are during daytime hours, and the events at the senior center are during daytime hours. So that the schedules overlap when they have.
Sorry to put you on the spot, James. How many parking spots are in the library?
Perfectly fine. I was doing the math while I was sitting here. Good morning, Ben James, that library trustee. We have between 32 and 35 spots. I don't remember exactly. I was trying to actually count on the map to double check. So if we're playing the pie in the sky number, which is always good to look at, it would be short at least 10. And it's currently during a good portion of morning program, we are filling 95 to 98% of the spots. So we may have 1, 2, or 3 spots available, but in most cases, we're parking lot is full. So we're already capped, currently maxed at that 30 spot. So we would still be a bit short if we were to shoot for 90 spaces. In theory, if we're trying to use that pie in the sky number.
Right, so it's really a shared use analysis that you have to do, because if you take the full community and senior center number of 79 and the full enhanced library target number of 35.
We're currently at 35 and we're full. So like that's
So you could say, well, the library wants 50 and the senior center wants 80, so ideally you'd have a parking lot of 130. But you probably nobody would want 130 because there should be some shared use reduction. And you don't want to incur the capital cost nor the environmental cost of excess pavement, but you have to look carefully at what the right number is.
Build a lot for the people. 100 slots, 110 slots, comfortably. 130 slots.
The diagram in here shows 90, or 92 or something, but it's not, it's at a conceptual level. So it's not, so you could say, well, that's never going to be enough. I would advise you to really look very carefully about whether it's enough or not. Or whether there's any, one of the studies that we did that was similar to this study was for the town of Lincoln. And they have a town, they have their schools, they have a shared high school, we're familiar to you guys, but their elementary school and their middle school are at something called Ballfield Road. There's this huge ball field with a big loop driveway around it. And that's where they have town meeting in the auditorium, and they do everything at Ballfield Road. And they have parking lots, there's a pool there, there's all these different municipal uses. But all of the excess parking when town meeting happens and everything is on the grass, pull 2 wheels off of the circle drive. Everybody just pulls over and they just park on, 2 wheels on the grass. Whenever their excess parking is needed, it's not drawn in striped spaces and everything. So again, it's about, sort of like how do we want to use our resources? And if it's 2 times a year or 3 times a year, when we exceed the available parking, is there a way to do that? That we just did a project of a whole, it's an outdoor amphitheater, a sort of an entertainment venue in a public park in Winchendon. And there's a soccer field, and we built a brand new parking lot with handicap parking and lights and everything, but that parking lot is only 50 spaces. And the parking load for the site is 3 times that. But they just park on the soccer field whenever that happens, and they have people directing traffic and they, and it's not enough use of the soccer field to wear down the grass. And, so is there a solution that meets your need without having extra capital cost or whatever, for shared use? So that's the question before you in terms of if everything else was pointing towards the library site and you wanted that site, then you'd have to cross that bridge and evaluate whether 90 on-site spaces are not to rule it out or the other sort of like potential benefit of the library site, which is pretty modest, but which is in our report, is that as a larger municipal community use building for gathering, which libraries increasingly aren't repositories of books, but are really community centers. So you have all this kind of community center facility together in a significantly larger facility. And 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, if the town had significantly increased needs, you could look at relocating one or the other facility somewhere else and then expanding the community center to fill up the entirety of the 2 buildings, or expanding the library to fill up the entirety of the 2 two buildings, but it gives you some future opportunities that don't count a lot
Yeah,
now.
there's no expansion of place here.
That was the beauty of 3 North Avenue.
There's no expansion of place here, so.
There was plenty of room for expansion.
It would be relocation
For another 15, 20 million dollars at that time.
or whatever, right?
30.
Yeah, okay, so 3 North Avenue. I think that you know, what you probably, if I were in your shoes, what I wouldn't want to do is go back to the voters with the same. Particularly now that it's more expensive than it came to them last time, because the soft cost factor that had been brought to them was only 10%, whereas I'm telling you, you should be carrying 25%. And you can decide for yourself on the soft cost factor, but I think you were underfunded in the soft cost factor that was built into the number that was rejected by the vote. So, okay, the site's very attractive because you can do whatever you want there, you know, future capacity, and budget, whatever you want there. Outdoor uses, greenfields, right? The main reason that it's so costly is that it's a fairly sloping site. And you're doing a lot of cut and fill and retaining walls, and you're also just having to spend a lot of money getting to where you put building deep in the middle of the site. In a previous meeting that I attended with some of you, we talked about, like, is there any way to put the building by North Avenue, up by North Avenue, and just significantly reduce the site improvement cost because you're not building so much site. And the answer was, well, it's really the town land there is not wide enough to fit the building and even just a two-way drive that would carry you past the building to larger, consolidated. I mean, the parking lots are all over the place in this design. You have so many parking lots. And again, I want to go back, just sorry about this, I want to go back to the senior center site and what we drew, which really wasn't a particularly good drawing. You just kind of go down the driveway and pull over, let somebody off, they can go in at the lower level, then you have to do like a 3-point turn. And every single vehicle, including Dan, you know, senior Dans and everything. So again, if you were to add land or do something else, you could have the kind of drop off that you would expect, have a drop off with a turnaround and stuff. Add site cost to that. Back to 3 North Avenue, what I would recommend looking at is whether is actually something where you put the building on North Avenue and put a large rectangular parking lot behind it with a drop off. Very simple site improvement, very simple, you know, simpler. It would still be the same kind of building design, 2 stories, whether it's an existing building, you know, you rapidly kind of get to the parking lot at a lower level. So you might have an upper level, you know, front. I don't think there's sidewalks on North Avenue, but they're on the other side. But it would be lovely if there was a sidewalk there and you could walk on the sidewalk into the building on the upper level. It would be a civic building, it would be on the street, all of that. But then the main entrance would be where all the parking and the handicap parking on the backside. So if the site's not wide enough, maybe not, you had conversations or explorations with the landowner of the parcel immediately adjacent, but could you do a land swap or somehow widen the site enough on North Avenue to consolidate all of the construction up close to the street? And I think that you can see it will give you something that would solve more of your, you know, the future expansion potential.
I don't think that $4 million roughly. So, yeah. Well, more than that.
I would
We still have to run the facility.
right. I mean, the site costs, it's just shocking when you look at this, so in the chart that I put on, you know, page 4, it says estimated site costs including GC markup. I took all the general contractor markups in proportion to added them, so it's not just the freight cost, but you're basically $1.5, $3, and $4.5 million. I mean, the difference between the 3 sites. So if you were to stay at 62 Providence Street, you would no longer be at $1.6 million. site cost, if you build the drop off, and you build more parking, and you know, with that extra 1 acre, that would come up. But likewise, if you could basically leave the big green field at that, nothing, don't do anything back there, and pull everything up to North Avenue, I would anticipate that 4.5 million would come down significantly.
I find it following the papers for that parcel of what, just under 3 acres, and covered that massive area down below.
How much was being built on?
Yeah,
You're saying 3 acres of development,
it's about,
yeah, it's a lot.
so, but interesting enough, though, something to consider would be the owner of the property decides if they want the rear egress from the lot on facing Route 16. They want the rear egress, if they could share some of the costs of the access. You gotta go a long way before you get downhill. That's, somebody shared the access, but that would reduce,
You're talking about Linda, the Chase house, where the Chases live?
no, that's the flip side, but the property.
The vacant lot.
So that would be 1 North Avenue? But let's say how?
What I'm thinking about, someone else could share the cost of it. People still have about the. I don't think-
I'm on 916, it's not a light thing.
I don't know. I just a question.
James, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't the library looking to expand their building? Don't you have some kind of plans in motion to ask the voters about expanding?
So we have grant funds to be able to conduct a separate analysis of the rectory building. Had been looked at, I believe, actually by Abacus back in 2020. And we wanted to do a refresh to evaluate that site for programming community space. So very similar to what we were talking about for parts of your building as well.
Because you desperately need it. I mean, you do. You do need the space. There's
We
no
love
doubt.
the culture of the library. You know, it's a very warm place. It's a ruckus place, which is awesome. But we still want to be able to have space that it can be quiet for books, and then also space that we can have all these programs and they can feed themselves. So actually, with representation from this board as well, we've been working through the rectory subcommittee to figure that out. And the premise of the design was a reconstruction in place with very modest changes to the existing rectory building. We did receive costs for that, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, I apologize.
No, sorry.
But we also recognize that especially with the current kind of tax condition and, you know, financial situation of the town, it was much more advantageous for us to say, we have these plans, we recognize that there will be inflation, but it's much smarter to say 4 or 5 years down the road, this is something that we want to push. So we're trying to build out a plan to have that as a smart approach and then address that directly through the capital planning committee and the select board to make sure we meet that need down the road. So that's where we sit with that. And actually I can work to get the exact information. I know it's in definitely some of our meetings, so I can get you guys the link so you can actually watch that and see all the specifics. So that's where we currently stand.
I'm just wondering, in other words, you're looking at the same space that they want to give to us. If we choose that. If we built our facility up there, would some of our rooms alleviate the need for you to have that building?
Yes, absolutely it would. And that would be a coordination and like the representative from Magnus talked about, kind of that joint space, both evaluation on parking, but also space usage. There's no question that would be. You are a rock star, thank you, Jeremy. So construction costs that we were able to identify for rebuild in place with this small add-on on the back of the building for a lift was 2.1 million. That did not include some of the other soft costs. So we were looking at the budgeting for about 2.5 million total. And that's in today's dollars.
It's very reasonable.
And that was definitely a cost savings benefit when we looked at cost per square foot of reconstruction versus rebuild construction, which we were honestly, I said, something very surprised by when we got those numbers. But to answer your specific question, yes, absolutely. We as the library would ask and petition to have access to community space to be able to do programs and stuff like that. If we were to go down the road where the current space of the rectory building would not be there, it would be the senior center / community center.
Okay, great, thank you, thank you. Back to you.
I think I can stop there. I mean, I've sort of touched on each of the sites, and we're happy to answer questions.
I thought maybe you might talk a little bit more about Green North Avenue. You gave us some information, but suppose because we've been through that site twice to the voters.
Yes, sir. The opinion, we all knew that it's gonna be more expensive no matter what we do. By the time you get to it, I have a question for President Jeremy. Well, select the confusion there. From a debt reduction debt bylaw, considering we had supported, which is good. Schools.
The last two
Last
times, yeah.
few times, I think that's excellent. What do you feel an appetite to go forward again when the drop off of debt happens, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think our large drop off is in fiscal 2030.
Thank you.
2030.
Yeah.
That we need to consider when we look at the path forward. Settle the hang on.
We'll be in the dirt.
We'll be looking at this one, when you submit.
Over in fiscal 27, so that's my monthly app. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, 2030.
I think that's what I meant. Oh, the cost can be good.
Yeah,
It's
so
2 years.
a small drop off in 2030 and then a huge drop off in debt service. So we're about 800. This is excluding schools. This is stuff that's already been borrowed from towns. We're about $800,000 a year in debt service in fiscal 29. Then we drop into about 700 in 2030, and then drop to about 250 in 2031. So we can take on $500,000 in debt service, settle their tax bill.
Does anybody else have any questions for him?
When the costs were first figured out for the 3 North Avenue, why wasn't it considered moving it forward then? Was there a major disadvantage of doing it? I mean, the whole plan was that it was going to be in the back, but why was it not even considered if it was cheaper to move it forward?
Not a question for me because I wasn't part of the conversation, but there may be people around the room who are.
Being on that committee of chairman. Wasn't physically enough. Possibly.
Could you be louder?
There wasn't a physical room up in that parcel gate there to the building. The way it's structured. We could have gone longer, I guess, but then, I'm not sure what the part, it just didn't look practical at the time. We always do the construction across the road, and hopefully if we ever develop that area, which goes way down the hill, there would be a road that the town would want to put in there, maybe for affordable housing, maybe for other municipal services.
But the library was always considered being up front. The library is up to the sidewalk.
The library?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm on one lot first, I'm kind of route through.
North Avenue.
Yeah, he's talking about number 3, 120 and one's like 29.
Right.
The route, number.
I'm saying that the library is close to the street. Why couldn't the senior center be close like the library?
Because it's not, the town-owned parcel is not wide enough at the top. It's a narrow.
It's narrow in the beginning and it goes all the way.
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
We don't know that yet. Sorry to answer. Thank you.
That's is owned by someone else.
Acquiring land, I mean, because I mean, I'm speaking from the experience of having been in this room with so many municipalities. And almost always, there's a huge bias for town-owned land because it's not even gets down to like the specific dollars, because building construction is so expensive that, you know, adding some piece of land, like an acre adjacent or whatever, isn't necessarily a huge number, but logistically, it's unattractive. it takes more time, more effort. You don't know that the project's gonna go forward, because you have to run the voters, but you still need to acquire the land in advance. And so I think probably what happened in that conversation was, well, the only, here's a piece of land we own, it's a great big piece of land. But the building has to go back in the middle of the site. And there's advantages to that, because we will have done so much development that then in the future, we can do all kinds of other things back in the back of the site. And so the cost of all of that front end investment seemed reasonable until it was rejected by voters. And then it wasn't reasonable because the project.
So Earl, this is the plot here. So you see this little piece here where my mouse is. That's the frontage that the town owned land is. These two parcels over here are not town owned. So in order to, reasonably site the building, we can come back off the street and then go into here, which is great for us.
All right. Kat? Yes, Kat.
If you were to do the library and senior center, what kind of disruption would the library have while it's opening? You talked about the senior center, like, having to close down if you do it there, just, what kind of disruption would the library have while this is being built?
So I think that the disruption to the interior operation of the library could be very controlled. I think that you shouldn't have to interrupt operations in a significant way. But there would be a major construction site adjacent, construction operation adjacent. Construction operations also need staging space, laydown space. And so if the building is taking up what is currently mostly lawn, then the space behind that, some of which is currently library parking around, all the way around the corner on the exit path, you would probably need to give up some parking there. So down here, it's noise, dust.
And we'd still be looking at like the 1 year mark, to do it there versus at the senior center.
To build a building of this many dollars, a $10 million building or whatever it is, hard cost. I think 12 months of construction is a little bit aggressive. I think so, very possibly it would be more like a 15-month construction period, but that, wouldn't necessarily be 2 years or something, but yeah, 12 to 16 months, I think. Again, if the town will need to bring in an OPM, an owner's project manager, since the legislature passed the law that said any project $1.5 million, which is now like built if you want anyway. You did anything, right? That industry is, I would be making a lot more money if I decided I would be an architect who was operating as an OPM and not an architect today, because they're all over the place. There's a lot of small, medium, and big firms that are doing that, and they will, once you hire one, they have all of this project management experience. And I mean, it costs money, but it does provide, if you hire the right person, it really makes your cost a lot easier.
Well, thank you. You have any
No,
other
this
questions?
one, while you're hearing about this one's more Jeremy on top. We have now, realistically, it's gonna take us time, that drop off, put this on the 31. It looks like we need a couple of work sessions going to do it fine, but we don't recommend working with the library. Now, because the short term, we need to look at the current facility and making sure that it's running for 27, 28, 29, 30,
Right.
31, probably 5 years. There's some shortfalls that people keep bumping into the current facility. I would like to suggest to the committee, council, that we put another working group together, look at short-term needs within the building. What can be addressed by simple things, the moving things around? Setting as the school gets up and running with their new facility for the generator to remove the emergency management stuff from the school. They mentioned that earlier in this thing. And look at rearranging shelves, reimagine the building. And clearly, for small money, a big growth expenditure. Really jump into it. It would not be held, it would be used for.
I don't want the piano in this.
You can think of it.
You don't want it what?
I do not want the piano in this room. You don't want it in your room, I don't want it in my room. So you move it. It doesn't need to be in senior center. I don't want
You
it.
got room in your office?
Building, Inman Road. That's where I look.
Free.
I guess we need to look at short term.
No big ones.
Like on the short term, is there a possibility of expanding some parking into that 1 acre lot?
Even if it's just stone.
Right, right.
It doesn't need to be asphalt. We can just.
Don't know that you, so.
I don't actually, yeah, I don't know where exactly that 1 acre is. I never,
Adjacent to the building, which is.
but the opposite side on the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But is it on the same level? You know, there's no. We may.
Right.
In my opinion, doing something, even if it is not the most convenient thing, is worth it based on number of people that we've had crossing that street that have almost gotten hit. And I will tell you from my own personal experience, I had a fire department truck, not the lights on, just their regular truck, not stop for me at the crossing. So, and that's not, I park over there consistently if we're having a large group. And it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. We've had, we
Couple of close
really
calls.
need to, on some level, address the parking.
Absolutely fine.
And from experience yesterday, we need to look at supplementing the HVAC in that building.
These
They were
are, they are
massive.
costly things. That's why I wouldn't say they're low budget items.
Oh, sure.
You're looking at money that's gonna have to be spent,
Oh, I'm not talking, I agree, parking lot,
HVAC,
HVAC.
an access route from the second floor to get out.
So say 3 points, 4 points. First, the fiscal 26 budget included in the fiscal, for the first time in the fiscal 27 budget, continues to include money for police details when there are larger events for the council on aging to hire police detail to assist with the process. So I get that, I can't do that every day. But we didn't want to put in a lighted crosswalk there at like $6 grand or something to say,
Move the one sign that's up by Kimball's residence, move it down closer. By the time people see that light flashing, you get around the corner and come down to the center, people have forgotten they saw the light.
They don't
Same one,
Well,
the placement on something like that, I think. would be
Yeah, that's-
advantageous.
that's a time.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
these- yeah, let me talk, I can talk about it. That's one, two, on that rear access, we do have money appropriated for that. But we wanted to get some resolution here, right, because we're knocking down the building, we must spend $30,000 on the debt. So we need some resolution as to what the preferred path forward is, to get that rear,
I guess I'm suggesting, Jeremy, that with a 4 to 5 year window, no matter what we do, knock the building down, or people to use it for another purpose if we locate something else. That would say that we need to fix that very quick. We probably should spend that money. In my opinion. I mean, that's a presentation we need to bring forward, but those are the kind of things we need to bring forward. So,
We don't have
there's some,
two viable businesses.
Right.
It's a real concern. It's a real concern. And, like yesterday, we had, that building was at mass, aside from the air conditioning and having people go up and down. I'm sitting in the kitchen and thinking, if there is an emergency, how am I gonna get my people out? And, just, it really is, it's something that needs to be considered, seriously considered.
sure.
Yeah, it's just a short-term fix. We need to do something to bring us up.
Jeremy, as we mull over these three plans that we have, can we assume that we're going to get the extra acre for parking or whatever? Is that something we can
yes.
assume?
Yes, I will show, I'll figure out where it is specifically and plot it out, but yeah, it was bought. I mean, It was bought with the specific intent of senior.
That was my understanding.
Yeah,
yeah, it's told us
Like that was
that.
before I was on the select. board.
Here's what I'm hearing. Mapped it out. The enemies are, saying. So it was Bill McHenry worked with them on that.
Yes. The other 2 points I was going to make were, you have a member of capital planning, 2 members of capital planning. So we're meeting, a week from tomorrow, to come, not to really evaluate projects, but to come up with a framework, come up with a schedule. So to remind everybody, we're only getting money from town meeting, the next town meeting is in the fall, maybe October, early November. So we will have free cash at that point, at least $600,000, but we'll have free cash at that point, and we want to structure our capital planning schedule to make sure we can evaluate everything, ready to recommend stuff to the select board and finance committee long in advance of the town meeting, special town meeting. So anything that, you know, our capital threshold is useful at 5 years or more, and the dollar value of $25,000 or more. So something like HVAC would come to that. Something like shelving would. But as you determine what you think the building needs, and I encourage you also to work with our facilities coordinator and by our experts, facilities coordinator. So the low level stuff, make sure you look at. I know we've got stuff down there recently with television.
We've got a lot.
So work with, run stuff with Bill. Explain to James and Jesse and who else to and probably some people about it.
Some of them.
So yeah, it's like one.
Also, we're gonna recommend
That, so just make sure that gets funneled through there and make that kind of a summertime urgency of saying, what is it that you need? So if you get to end of September and then you say, here's the list of what we want, that's not gonna work.
So, from a planning standpoint, the scheduling will be in another week or so. And we'll lay that out, but the July timeframe, we should have things go. So for the group here, we should be thinking about the next month and a half, to identify these things, and start to move down, so they could get presented to council. You have to have by so that Jeremy can react to the budget process for the town meeting coming up.
You know, you put a fine point on it. I'm on maternity leave from July 20th through August 31st. So if you want my assessment on it, you need to get it in by July. In advance.
I would suggest that we probably need by the first of July. First week. But we know what we need.
James,
Hi, James Nash again, sorry, I'm annoying.
this isn't the town meeting where you gotta stand up and say where you live and all that. We know you're James.
In respect to the HVAC concern, this may be to Jerry, but also to a broader question. I know there's been more evaluation about emergency services, and the fact that the senior center is one of the, emergency locations. I wonder if there are some funds that exist out there, whether currently in budget or other funds that we can tap for HVAC. For
Do
that.
you know anyone in emergency management?
Mike Lupino is.
I think Bucky's the right point of contact there, but I wanted to double check to see if that's something we asked already or. Okay.
We haven't talked about
I will happily reach out.
it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Elena?
I have a question for you. So you laid out these three directions that we could go as a town. Do you, and then you put it to the Council on Aging to sort of decide sort of which is the preferred one. Is there a way to like engage the broader community? Because ultimately it's the voters who are going to decide, like the Council on Aging and a number of boards and committees supported the 3 North Avenue project, and then it failed twice. And I don't know if there's a way that towns have successfully engaged the broader community earlier. Because I personally liked the 3 North Avenue site, and I think so I think, we don't know exactly why it got voted down. I mean, there were a number of different explanations, but I just wonder if there, like in your experience, are there ways to get the community involved earlier?
Absolutely.
They can vote down any of these.
I mean, I'm smiling because, every day, one of the first emails I get every single day, for the last 3 weeks, and today is from SurveyMonkey, because we are working, similar, we're working on a site evaluation and site selection and visioning for a senior and community life center for the town of Swampscott. And the committee, it's a site selection and evaluation committee that is our client, and they're really they didn't actually want to. We've been doing, kind of concept design like this on sites, but they have chosen not to really even publish any of that design work because they want to start with the community outreach piece. And their annual town meeting was last night, I guess, or the night before, and we launched the SurveyMonkey, and they've been doing this huge outreach. We spent I don't even know how long, 3 months with them refining all the questions on the survey. And then they had 300 paper copies of the survey, as well as QR codes at town meetings to get more input. And it's still relatively modest, but I think we've broken 300 responses already. But they are hoping to get 1,000 responses. And it's a really, really good strategy politically, because the best way to get people on your side in any kind of political question is to ask their opinion, not to tell, but it's actually to engage. So yes, you absolutely go to the public and sort of do that.
So I guess, this is maybe not a question exactly for this board, but I know that it is possible to put a sort of a survey question on a ballot, from my understanding, a non-binding question. So I think the issue is with surveys is we get the most engaged members of the community, and with town meeting, we again get the most engaged members of the community, and we get a certain amount of consensus from this subset of the community. But then when it comes time for people to show up and vote, we have another 70% of the community that has not watched a single meeting or looked at the website. So I guess, I don't know, do you know of any communities who've done that approach to do a sort of survey question, would you support a project?
No, I've actually never
heard of
never encountered that.
Okay, yeah.
Interesting on the side, which is working around to solve it together.
Yes.
They have a very good approach. That's when you pass
Yeah.
capital plan and they override. Very successful.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And working with that group, they have MCAM from their people. They have a constituent identified well. They know how to approach people. They have 200 volunteer drivers in 2 towns. So say 100. That's where you get something through. And they're very visible, very open. And in some respects, they didn't engage them because it goes down the rabbit hole of the Facebook again. They publish data. Need more information, go to the site. Even know what your tax implication is, put your number in. But we're here for you to talk about it, discuss it, and they did it multiple times. So
And where was this?
this is right here in town, at the school over. They were very impressive operation.
You also, I assume you can query frequent voter, you can refine frequent voter lists.
Essentially, that's what it is.
So you can actually target,
You probably-
you can do queries where you say, give me a list of everybody who's voted in the last 5 elections, or who's, whoever's voted in, give me a list of who's voted in local only elections as opposed to November elections and everything's.
I think voter turnout was not huge at the election yesterday. So I think,
1,200.
right, so I think there was good turnout of the yes votes and little turnout of the no votes. But I guess I'm always in favor of transparency. I would rather that people decide on it rather than that we get something through because people weren't paying attention. But I don't know, that's just.
A little differently understand.
I'm not the same end result, but I guess I want the community to be engaged and be part of the decision as much as possible. I mean, that's just my
Both that.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's the big one.
I was gonna say,
But anyway.
on a positive note, we didn't lose by a big margin.
No, it was
People
close.
Less
So
than
they were
1%.
in favor of it, so
Less than 1%.
I know if you lose, if you lose by one vote, I know.
Yes votes for the senior center project, and we had yes votes yesterday for the override.
I think it's not like want like another committee or something, but I think you find someone who's very passionate about seniors, who's not necessarily on the younger side too, but like you can feel like maybe like you guys have given so much, you have put forth, yes, the town went ahead and passed the schools. Well, now that we've done that, let's look at those people who got us there, like, and just how you spend it, you get like a community, committee together of, both, if you want it with the library, the senior center, kind of different age range, and you get someone who builds those websites or gets that information out there, someone who will spearhead that. I think that's how you're gonna reach the community. That's what schools did. They had a stronger together. They, everyone was working, really together on that. I think that might be a good idea.
That's racist. That's just Kim's ready.
It's gonna see it.
Kim's ready to work. So, but I think that's a big thing. I go back to my previous request before it closes out. Short term and long term, if we can get a working group together
Okay,
to look at what we need short term, get capital planning together for Jeremy in November. And we get a working group together to analyze what was presented here. To look at the three terms, but include someone from maybe Andrew, someone from the library, because we are touching on their area. The one recommendation. And come up with a recommendation from the COA. One thing before we go there, though, I'd like to ask you from an architectural standpoint. You deal with it. To look at all the alternatives, downsides and upsides, what would you recommend?
My instinct about the existing facility is to try to find a useful repurpose for it after the seniors move out, and not to try to take that site and rebuild it for the senior center. I think you end up with a more compromised facility than you should for still a relatively similar capital cost. So I don't really favor that site. I certainly, if it was me, I would look to try to do a land swap and bring and get enough land right on North Avenue to have a civic building like Town Hall. It's up on the street, it has the faces the street, it has a front door, like Town Hall, it's a big parking lot behind it that, serves all the utility and is highly efficient. And you build a new facility, so I would look into seeing if you could reconfigure the land with. It makes perfect sense that wasn't done last time. Because, that wasn't the thinking, but at this point, I think you could cut, $1 million out of the site cost. Bringing it all the way forward. All that off, in the future, you got plenty of it anyway. And then I think that, if the library and the council on aging and the community were really excited about a shared use, larger community facility where lots of things could happen and kind of a win-win, then I would pursue the library. I mean, it loves it. This is the whole is more than the sum of the parts.
I personally like the library, seeing the community center configuration. My concern with what exists today, and once we sneeze a little bit further, we're tight. The library's tight, we're super tight. I'm not sure. I don't look at the. I'm not sure. Not in the same place. Then you're just. They're going to go deal. Right. And then we're saying, okay, we have a band. Look for a little while. That's my opinion.
Yeah, in terms of like, right, not growing space. Yeah, I think the idea would then be library / senior center / community center would then become one of those things. And there would be a centric building. So again, I think building better.
Yeah, you just a good modular
But
building.
I mean, the library wants more square footage, right? 6,000. It's undersized for it. It's maybe the long, right, but it's just that, right?
I had a thought about the short-term program to keep the senior center running, which is to discuss whether a gravel lot, auxiliary lot, and not police details, right? Like, but not do a full paved lot with signage and all of that. But if you, I mean, I'm just sketching it here. Where here's this is Providence Street, here's the senior center, here's the driveway on the near end. If you could come straight and then somehow just, it's fairly level in this area. I mean, I haven't been down there to see if there's a tree that can be cut down or anything, but conceivably you could, come straight in off of the existing driveway to something. And I would talk to, the highway department and say, hey, do you have a pile of crushed stone somewhere that you could spread around over here? Conceivably, you could ask the highway department to take a look at it. Could they create essentially a relatively level crushed stone area there that would potentially not be as useful in the winter because you wouldn't really necessarily want to plow it? But it would be, yeah, anyway, something to try to conversation.
Doing that would not detract from the potential reuse of the same building, right? Even, right, either way,
Because it's not.
if the senior center stays in place, it would be useful, or if the senior center moves, it would potentially be useful for whatever future use is.
What is it, what a building, to have something sort of level and broad access to, whether the rent use. Unless there was some beautiful trees that you were tearing down, which you.
One place that might change all
Another specification is in medium-term searches for better indoor program spaces. So the reuse legacy senior center situation. I think added parking would likely be really useful for what I see as open space.
We're not going to set up a committee today because we heard a lot. We still have a lot to go through.
An action item that would be that you and I can deal with legacy.
Yep.
Let's figure out how to do this, because we have a short with the long term, we have a little more with the capital.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And thanks to our guests for coming.
Cheering and great mind.
We're gonna talk about grants. Later, 2 minutes.
All right.
Good morning. And,
Okay, we're going to move on with our regular agenda and would be Amy with the director's report. Are we back up? We still on live?
Dan Byer recently did speak about the AC splits and possible grant funding or something like that. I think he was thinking, I'm not positive, but I think he's thinking conservation commission, a joint grant. I will say what happened yesterday was unprecedented. I think Monday night, the air conditioners were shut off. They should not have been shut off. This is a week when we should be on, and yoga from that Monday night, the instructor didn't know better to shut them off. It just, the building could not stay cool yesterday. It's unheard of. But some good news, I brought to LPI. LPI is the printer of our newsletter. I told them about that our senior residency has grown. When I first came here, there were 608 seniors. Now there's like 1,700 seniors. So I talked to them about increasing the number of newsletters that we get, and also the size of the newsletter. Because it was brought to my attention that, as many of you know too, you all bring to my attention, the size of the font needed to be increased, or to maintain at least at 12. Well, 14 seems to be kind of one of the going size of the font. So LPI has agreed to, as of the September issue, we're going to increase the number of pages by 4. But in doing so, one of those pages is going to be another page of full page of ads. So we have a total of 12 pages with 2.5 full pages of ads. The other thing, and so they're going to have to work to get more advertisers for this as well. We don't pay any funding whatsoever for the newsletter, publishing, printing. So I've talked to staff. They're very, both Shauna and Jen are very well equipped to use, different programs that I use. Like, for example, we want more pictures. So we're hoping that by having those more pages, we can do a nice spread of pictures. And so this is something we're going to be working towards. One thing I have to remind Jeremy of, the town needs a Canva license. And
What license?
Canva, LPI is moving over from publisher to Canva. It's a different, a lot of folks are more comfortable with it. And it's something that both Jen and Sean are very committed to. So this is the newsletter moving forward to more pages, a larger font, more pictures. So just exciting. Hopefully make a lot of people very happy. I have been trying since we hired, and leaving the town of Mendon. The town of Mendon, the select board hired Paul Sarah to be our secondary driver. And he's phenomenal. We have not been able to get him the most important training that we need, which is the lift accessibility. At MARTAP, which is the state DOT department, has opened up the training. And I saw at the training booth, there's going to be one July 8th. I got on without even talking to him. I went on, I registered him, just got the registration back. Sorry, it's full. And so, but back in March, because I was so, anxious to get him trained, what happens is whenever we need somebody to help with a wheelchair, we ask Wayne to come on board because he's trained, he's got a two-year certification. So in March, what I asked was, I sent in a notice to the state and I said, could we become a site, training site?
Train site.
So we just got the notification, that the training is full for Paul down in, down by the, Fall River. Just got notification we've been accepted, approved to be a site. It's a matter of I have to fill out a form, I have to send it back to them. They've got a date for us. It's why I asked Karen yesterday. They've got a date for us Friday, July 28th. And we need at least 10 people, which I will send notices out to all area senior center directors that, we need your drivers. And if we're in that same boat,
Someone else's.
Too. So hopefully I can do that, I can fill that out and I can send that off to them. And maybe we'll establish this as in the future as being a training site. They come to us. Our drivers get to use our van. They're comfortable with our van to do these operations. So that's that.
It's good news, stuff.
It is. It's having to see on top, both Wayne and I. It's like we're comparing notes. It's like, did you see the list of training? And it's not there. You see the list of training. So
Do we have anyone else who has given any interest that they would possibly like to be one of our drivers?
so
Well, I'm just thinking, Wayne, he takes December off because
Right.
of Santa. And, they have vacation time and I know they have limited hours, but I'm just wondering if there's anyone else who has,
we could put out the ad that we put out, Shauna and I put it together, which brought us in Paul, who is exactly who we need.
Right.
I will tell you this. Paul is so embracing this retirement job. When he came to us before, Wayne has already gave me a 2-year notice as of last August. So, and I keep checking in with him.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I certainly don't want to give this job away.
no.
But Paul is, when I first came here, I had a single driver, but I had 2 backups.
This is what I mean, someone that could be like a backup.
So Wayne is willing to, when he retires, to be a backup. But we certainly,
Still need
we
another
can
person.
still, and Paul loves his job. He loves the driving, he loves working at the center. I think this is, it's
Good fit for them.
good fit for him, good fit for us, as many of you can see.
Well, I was just thinking if there's anyone else interested,
Do that. Does anybody want to take a lift accessibility training on the 28th of July?
I will.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
Are you interested in driving?
On a, as needed,
15.
if you were in a pickle.
Yeah, I mean, we have to have you hired,
Yeah.
as a part-time driver. We have to have you take all the trainings.
Mhm.
A lot of them are online. When you take them in person now, they've gone to a 3-year certification, which is fabulous, because some of them were 1 year. And so,
well, that would be good, Karen. That
so
would be good.
yes, that would be good. So, 28th, good, that's 2. So
All right.
we need to have 10.
We'll get them.
So,
I think other senior centers
Mhm.
might very nice, when they
Yes.
each other.
yes. Well, Blackstone has always been our sister center when it comes to training. So,
Yeah.
just something else to let you know, we've been partnering, myself and the town planner, Dylan, has been partnering with Central Mass Regional Planning. And this goes back to that digital equity program. And I know some of you did the survey, maybe mixed feelings about it. They're coming in. We've got 2 in-person programs where they want to have a dialogue. We're going to have one here. It's going to be on, let's see, Tuesday, June 9th at 6 o'clock here, and there's going to be dinner served, pizza from Deluxe. There's also going to be gift cards given out by from the Muffin House. Then on the 15th of June, it's Monday afternoon from 1 to 2, we're going to have an ice cream social. And again, the same thing, it's going to be CMYPC coming to talk about digital equity. They want to find out, how we're doing, what we can do to improve it. Elena, does the select board talk about that at all? Or is it something?
We didn't have like an agenda item talking about it. I'm trying to remember. Jeremy may have mentioned it in one of his TA reports, but yeah.
So we've been working on it for quite some time, and so hopefully we'll have a good turnout at the center and here in the evening.
Is that something that the select board should mention? I mean, it's open to the public?
Yes,
So like,
yes.
okay.
Yes, actually, I put a flyer downstairs. Are you having a meeting tonight?
We are. So there's an opportunity to mention community events.
I will be here tonight, just the COA, it's got something that they're presenting, but I can certainly mention it too. Just so for you up to speed, Shauna and I did not attend the Serve Safe program a couple weeks ago because I talked to our site coordinator for the center, and the initial training is an 8-hour training. What the town was offering here was 3-hour, what we thought was a training, which didn't seem like enough. Turns out it was just a 3-hour test.
That's
So it was $175 a person, and she had 13 pages of material where I was told, oh, sure, you memorize those 13 pages. You only need 70%. Shauna and I will find another 8-hour training. We want to do it right. If we're going to do it, we don't want to, Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So we'll both make the effort. I mean, we're kind of halfway there where we do our training through Tri Valley, but it's elevated, I should say. Let's see, survey. We've had recently been, the schools have recently been in touch with us, and we do have, I mentioned yesterday that we're going to have the preschool children coming down on June 4th from 1 to 2. This was a program that was originally scheduled back in March, and it had to be changed for one reason or another. We also just recently had 2 groups from Nipmuc, and one group is they're trying to start a lunch program, inviting the seniors to Nipmuc for lunch. And 3 of the students that are involved in that were also involved in the writing program, the World War II oral program. And so they came recently to the center. They wanted to, talk to some of the seniors. They had just gone to Upton, just trying to explain what it is that they're going to do. And so they're pretty aggressive in that they want to have seniors come twice a month, but knowing that maybe not everybody can come twice a month. So they came the other day. We also had a group of 3 students who were working on a pollination project that was a carryover from their predecessor, and they came, I gave them some flower boxes, soil. They've started some plant. We'll see if these plants, you know, if we talk to them enough, they sprout.
Where are they gonna put the plant?
2 of them are on the back deck. One is down by the bocce court.
Oh,
Okay, and speaking of the bocce court, it was brought to my attention that there, you know, the bocce court, we've had extensive work done on that. Number one, when it was created. Number two, Eagle Scout a few years ago improved the drainage underneath it, because when it rains really hard, the sand dust just gets moved everywhere. So it was brought to my attention that it's not level, and I did call one of the users of it, person that's been using the bocce court since before the pandemic. Family, friends, neighbors go every Wednesday night. They also go on Sunday. She told me that, yes, it's not level, but we bring a rake, we do weeding while we're waiting for our other folks to come. But, you know, a suggestion was made that maybe we could have a container of some of that nice fine sand, so that when there are divots or whatnot, people can, you know, take care of that. So I just wanted to, it's pleasing to know that bocce court is getting a lot of use, but it's getting a lot of use at night when it's cooler. And so I think, you know, it's a matter of, we can start, you know, advertising it again. And one day perhaps seniors take on the police, seniors take on the fire department, you know, something to that effect. Seniors take on students. Actually, when I was walking around with the students showing them the property, some of the students are familiar with bocce, and I said that would be another great program to go in. So.
Supplies for that, we should put that on the list.
We'll have,
Was that
Put it on the list.
the sand?
like supplies, that would be considered a supply.
Okay. And just one other thing, just wanted to let you, last month, we had that point program. It was very well attended, I think very well. People were very pleased with their one-on-ones. So it's something worth doing every couple of years. Thank you, that's it.
Okay, friends. You're right, Karen. Carolyn, who's everywhere.
our meeting was on May 11th. It began with Martin Luttrell discussing Mendon Commons. He spoke prior to the meeting about his online hyperlocal newspaper that he's running with his wife Sharon. Then we received reports from the treasurer, which was accepted, the secretary. New members are continuing to sign up. Received a council on aging report from Peg and the director's report from Eamon. President's report, birthday bash was May 19th, very successful. Our first bingo session is May 21st. The scholarship program for this year, we've had 7 applicants, and the winner is a Nipmuc student, yet to be announced. The history presentation, our next one is May 26th, which will be the Golden Age of Mendon, presented by Rich Schofield. Our police detail is booked for the yard sale on June 6th from 7:30 to 11:30. It's going to cost us $400 of our precious monies.
But wait, when you say there was money in the budget to pay for police?
This is the friends.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't part of the thing.
It's too bad, because I mean, you're fundraising on.
That's quite a percentage of our profit. Goes straight to the police.
I'll look at that, discuss it.
I don't know.
Because we're really bringing to the event from seniors, service to the seniors, and by all rights, we should have.
Yeah, I think it's worth raising. You want to raise that issue?
It's worth asking.
Yeah, I think it's worth asking.
It's definitely the COA event. So whether, well, I mean, there are events that's the COA. So, I mean, I think it's a conversation that can be had, but I think there's a certain amount budgeted, and also maybe considering what other events the COA, like official COA events there are, so that.
We work in tandem. We work hand in hand. That's the problem. We do, because our membership overlap.
Yeah, I agree. Just that, like, it's, with budgets, if it is designated for COA events, if there is a way that the yard sale could be a joint COA event, for example, then, I think it would need to be officially a COA event in order to make use of that. But
Ask anyone.
I think it's worth having that conversation.
Yeah.
But also to make sure that it doesn't eat away at the budget that COA events would need in some other time. I think this is what the end of the fiscal year though, right? So there aren't too many events.
Right, so there might be money there.
We are investigating whether there is interest in holding a wine, cheese and trivia party. We're also investigating a gift given at the Veterans Breakfast. And suggestions are hat, a flag, or the traditional gift certificate. For the committee reports, Friends Lunch Bunch, and I'm pretty sure that's where they are at the moment, is at the Empire Buffet. The Sunshine Committee, several cards were sent out. The Travel Committee, Bev advised members to send their checks to secure a seat for each trip as soon as possible. These trips are filling up. And once you have your check sent in, then your seat is guaranteed. Our next cooking class is on June 26th, when Hala will be demonstrating and making Egyptian delicacies. The BJ's membership, there are still 2 memberships available for people in good standing. A yard sale update. At the date of the meeting, there were 13 families signed up for yard sales. I will say traditionally, they all sign up at the very last second. Saturday mornings, we are open for registrations and donations with the assistance of our wonderful Girl Scouts. And so far, at the time of this, we have 22 businesses signed up to advertise in the directory, and I'm still receiving notes. Our next Friends meeting will be June 9th, and our next board meeting is May 22nd.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
all,
you.
folks.
Very good, thank you. Okay, old business. Amy, we have much to say about food pantry?
Just that we all that food that we got this winter, which was a lot, we really depleted it. And I've heard that St. Gabriel's, which had done one of the bigger drives at Thanksgiving, is going to be doing the drive this June for both Mendon and Upton. They hurt us because we had so much food this winter. And I gave that feedback to say the schools that, getting food in June is important. We
Yeah,
just
because the kids are gonna be off of school.
yeah, we just spent
They're home
6
for
years
more
ago,
meals.
so our stuff important.
We were so over, we had so much.
Now, if you eat Cheerios, regular or honey nut, we have a lot. So, but no, we're doing well. We've had some great volunteers, and it happened. I think the chair,
yesterday.
yeah, we had a returned yesterday, but because she was out, we have a couple of seniors from the senior program, senior work program that have filled in. We've had new seniors helping us on the monthly Fridays. Phenomenal. These people love to organize, love to check dates, labels, and so we've been very grateful there. On the other hand, I have not heard back from our scouts regarding shelving. He did send me an email about 3 weeks ago saying he wanted to come, talk about it. He needed 5 hours of work time. He has not come, so I'm disappointed in him. But in the meantime, everything is really well organized, clean.
Thanks to our volunteers. that have
Thanks to
done
the
that,
volunteers.
yes. Did you want to say something for?
Quick on a few things. Under the economic situation going on, possibility of getting from not quite as bad as a SNAP emergency. I know we're down to a smaller number of stuff. But should we consider reopening more than once a month? Because I look at Upton, they have it like a couple times a week, they have it, the pantry program. St. James has one regular basis, weekly. Another area has it twice a month.
Well, we we have it open where they can come in and do their own shopping. Isn't it twice a month?
You know, that's once a month, but they're able to submit their order. They get a substantial amount of food.
I know they get delivered because I've made some deliveries myself.
I guess the section after, it should, when you read our bulletin in the newspaper.
Yeah.
It says broken once a month and by appointment. Whereas the other place are much more fluid, they say, come in between 9 to 5. On these days. We got 9 to 12. You then get regular block hours, more frequently visible than we have. I'm just concerned about the economic condition.
Is there a possibility that we can open
I
more
guess
than?
I just bring it up for
No,
consideration.
So we have to say, are we open so that, I mean, the same person can come multiple times? You know, or is it, because they can access this, but they can't come, if they can't get there because they need food delivered. And unfortunately, that article, that's something that the newspaper put together, but we deliver food, we take orders, you know,
Maybe we need to publish it more, I guess, because it's a tough time.
You're right, I
So
know.
we have $25,000 in our bank. So for stocks go down. So we have a generous community that gives. We ask.
Well, if we have enough coverage, I know there's a confidentiality issue. We have to always keep that in mind. Yeah, I would be open to doing
another day. I'm happy to go. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have on that.
All right, let's see. Maintenance and groundskeeping.
Just draft and drop board did a great job this spring. And behind Lisa Hurley, Bill Bergen, and Tom Sawyer were here with 80 students and their supervisor. As I said, I just told you about the students coming to do about flower boxes. Dan Byer was there. He applied weather strip, a sealant around the weather strip. The weather stripping had been applied by the Jollicore, the door maintenance people, but there was still enough of the space. So Dan just came and did that. He is available for many different things. Although I do know that this is getting to be a very busy time of year. School, but yep. So
And Ann and John Vandersloot did the window box.
We haven't put them,
Well,
they were up at my house right now.
Yeah, you were waiting for the
Yeah.
coldness to
He
stop.
put them in the pots, they had just.
So, in light of the fact that Ian couldn't go this year, Diana and I went and purchased the flowers. And
Nice. Thank you
it's
for
kind of
doing that.
nice to get involved in that part of it.
Well, you guys are up next because you've been very patient.
Quick one, well, we applied for 3 grants. The IBM grant, we weren't accepted. That was for like $2,000. So we're using their tools and teaching people computer literacy. We rejected on that. Second grant we rejected on was the Simple Maths Health for memory matters program. Working with Jen, because this is my action item with her on one of the COA meetings. She's come up with a proposal. She started working with Draper and Corner. There's 2 assisted living.
Cornerstone and Milford, yes, okay.
And she's looking at presenting a proposal here next month that would say, how do we connect these people together, not for this service, leveraging those folks to deliver in our center. She wants to review that with the committee. Essentially, what the goal is to get twice a month in conjunction with other delivery, a proposal in front of the COA to say we bring memory matters into the group as a support. Great ideas, you've done good work on it, and you need to do it based on the training, but then watch the people. So next month, should be coming with the presentation.
So we should be on our agenda for next month.
And with that being said, Andy is we have the one for AARP, we're gonna present tonight to the select board. It's not public, accepted public. But they will be officially awarding this mid-June publicly. And we're working the program, and Andy has a presentation.
Good.
To talk about the grant received, or what we're almost received.
All right. You have the floor, Andy.
Going to I'd like that
And
share.
then you'll have to speak a little louder.
I'm going to move over here.
Yeah, you do
So I'm
that.
not shouting from one end to the other.
It's hard to hear in here because these high ceilings, the voice stuff there.
So we had introductions earlier, I'm Andrew Nicol, fairly recent member of residents and turned all time to the town matters, I feel like capital. And a friend reached out to me about this program. This award from AALB. And I'm actually one of the things I do, I'm a credential project manager. And this requires a lot of project management, particularly complex, but it requires formal project management. So his skills are way up the salary of technology.
And we thought it was just boat building.
He's gonna go building to the pace. So as Phil mentioned, he applied for and we received, didn't receive the grant, we received notice that we're going to be an award. It's actually not public information, we don't officially get the grant until we've reviewed and signed an agreement and they do the announcement themselves. You know, and once we've done that, we can start marketing a bit more. But this is to give you an idea of what this project's going to look like and what it achieves and what the objectives are. This presentation would actually presented also in the Slack board today. Being a formal agreement, that formal agreement is going to have planning approval. So we provided that to Jeremy a week or so ago, and the town council's taking a look at it. But hopefully, this all assumes we get the approval of the town to go ahead. So basically, I'm going to walk you through what the program is, what the benefits are, what the project will look like, some of the risks are, and hopefully, I think you'll agree it's a great thing to do. Okay? As I mentioned, we've been, let's say we're awarded 15,000. Yet, but we'll get that award in place. We have a call this afternoon to learn more details about how they're going to distribute that award. Is it a lump sum? Is it an amount per a month? So do we have to like invoice for it? Periodic payments, so we'll deal with all that detail this afternoon. But the basic idea is to create a learning hub, supported learning for the CD community. The reason AALB fund this is because you're probably all aware that you can join the AALB with your 50 plus. So they call this the 50 plus. They get some benefit from this because hopefully people will join AALB from this. They don't just give it away for the money. I'm sure they want people to participate. So the idea is to procure a bunch of PCs, create a number of classes, not just how do you use a computer, but also some very specific, how do you renew your driving license with DMV? How do you log on to Medicare and get your notices? How do you file for your taxes with IRS? A lot of the world today, a lot of government departments and private businesses, it's moving from form filling to online first. Right? Form filling is the exception. So helping people to navigate those for various services. So we're going to build a help desk function around that to make sure people are supported, they get answers. And we're going to leverage, professional volunteers that we have around Mendon. We're also intending to use the regional high school. Because obviously they have students who have helped out with creating classes, developing computers, helping support, maybe even delivering some of the classes themselves. And obviously they have programs to credit students with that for community growth as well, so they're motivated. You're still here. One of the things I want to specifically do is get the library involved.
Mhm.
I can hear you quite well, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. Libraries are going on. Sure, I can go borrow a book from the library, but I can also use Living, a library application. I can use my library card to order books. Also, what our local library does, as with a lot of other libraries, is they have lending programs for things other than books. And I get the pressure washer. But lots of equipment that people use for their own. So one of the objectives here is to have this learning program in 2026, funded by AARP, thank you very much. But then use that as a basis going forward. So what I'd like to do is take these computers and maybe some Wi-Fi hotspots for those people that don't have Wi-Fi, to keep a few of the libraries so that the library can work with the library to come up with a process so they can lend those out to people who want to borrow a computer in a hotspot for a few weeks. So, and obviously we have some local business support, some IT folks, some local IT companies work for corporations and recycle laptops. So in future, we'll have a supply of refurbished laptops, very reduced rates. I don't want to say 3 AM. I don't want to assume the good rates yet, but maybe cheaper. So the idea is to have this program, not just teach people how to press and point, but take them through the world application. That is supported by our local student community as well. And that basically runs, so just the slide for catching up with my speaking. Obviously, the benefits here increase digital literacy and enhance computer skills. And as I mentioned, I sort of got ahead of myself. One of the things is not to just do point and click training, but also on specific real world examples that we use. I mean, there's even some useful private stuff like AALP. They have a great website, lots of games, lots of wellness, health programs, and so on. And lots of other companies do that as well. And Facebook pages. We have Facebook pages for town. And rather than having the monthly dialogue as to whether the bins are being picked up this week, people will learn to be able to go to the town website. Look at what the schedule is. Seriously, that helps to connect more into the community. So obviously it's all about increasing quality of life. The AA filmed this pitch to AALP related very much in real world experience. The AALP wants a formal agreement for reporting and tracking, and make sure we have a formal project, well documented, make sure we fill the requirements. So what AALP are looking for, we're starting up with them now. We have them now. Just about the award on the 8th. We actually have a meeting this afternoon to find out details of how we distribute that award. They want things to do. They want us to do a montage, little video message just participating. So they'll give us a script and everything. And we have hired a producer to bring this video.
Our cinema is.
Jen, she speaks well. She's the perfect candidate.
It really is.
And the
just
tagline is, you can teach old dogs new tricks.
We do really like that.
What happened to nepotism?
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's one thing that, we want to use on the, the fact that. What they're looking for the agreement, to be signed, we have to get on the e-supply board for as well. Yesterday. So there's a few little things like that, but then once we kick off the program. With some backwards and forwards. After that, once we're up and running, they just want to find a report. So it's up to us to decide exactly how to do that. So we've put together a formal project charter, which me and Phil will go through, and we'll share all of this. I've set up like a project folder on the town side, so people can go in and see all this detail. Put in a detailed project charter, or work together with all the dates, each school in there. We've got names to stakeholders. We're going to help, so we'll get the resources and motivated and going to get this done. Well, the project initiation plan is what we decided exactly what goals, who's going to put those together, how we going to document them, how we going to deliver them, how we schedule them, and so on. So there's a lot of need to start with. So we're going to do some piloting as well. We'll start with one computer, set up some things, try it out, make sure everything works, and then get the other half of those computers. So we'll probably start a pilot in like July, August, and then have classes in August. AARP are looking to shut the program down on the 15th of December. Full funding for the can do by the end of the year. That's the formal project. For this, as I mentioned, once we put in place, done the work on those classes, we've got some computers, we may have some Wi-Fi hotspots, we've got a good basis to just either have the year, we will want to join in. Or even,
So you can reapply for the grant, is that what you're saying? You can
oh yeah, but this grant is for this year.
Yeah, I know that, but is it open to reapply for it next year if it's a successful review?
Every single year.
Okay.
But I believe once we've got this on grant, we'd be way at the bottom of the list.
Okay.
It's a start grant, and I think the argument.
Is this approved?
Yeah.
We just have to, we need to work it. You can't announce it because they will. We're gonna.
And we know what you're saying.
But what it is, it creates the course, it creates the environment, we buy the computers with our loaders.
Mhm.
So that will help, we just run our own computers.
Okay.
We have the connection to the STEM, to the school, or
Right.
the superintendent on that line. We have a local supplier when it comes to others. All the infrastructure gets put in place between here and December. And next year, it can repeat itself. I don't see expenditures of the schedule.
Great.
That are volunteers.
Just to add to that, for example, some of the IT companies are continually recycling machines for businesses they work with. It's always an issue at the end of that cycle that we replace, that we can get as donations, right?
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to do, something mentioned that. So the Commonwealth, as do other states, have equity programs for war broadband, right? And the target market for that is seniors, right? So one thing I want to explore, and it's on my list to do in preparation for 2027, is maybe once you set this up in the library road program, We can also help people to apply for broadband grants so they can get broadband at home, right? Through the program for Commonwealth.
But we've had hotspots if they don't, portable hotspots.
Yeah.
Plus the senior center and the library will also be hotspots. So a person could. I don't know,
Is the town hall a spot?
Yeah.
Do we get Wi-Fi here?
Yeah.
We do, okay, all right.
Once we teach them how to do all that.
Yeah.
But the way to think this is this is putting the basis and using this ALP grants. Basis of groups and classes, setups and processes. To load machines, and all those sorts of processes. Once we've got that in place, we can do it again in 2027 without any.
I see.
And we can also patch them.
I hope that you guys come to one or the other of the digital equity programs.
I had not heard about it until you mentioned it earlier.
And the flyer down the hallway. It'll be in the senior center newsletter.
I'm familiar with it. It would be exactly the same thing. Well, I'm a telecoms guy and I know that the state, along with a lot of other states, have equity programs for broadband. So I think it's related about broadband technology.
Also, could I get a write-up for the summer newsletter? Obviously, with the going through right now.
Yeah, what? You actually bring the good point up. You know, because we have the Facebook sites and channels, what we do once we get the go ahead from the town and we've signed the agreement with AARP and they say they actually those right. Once we've got that, we're going to put this out on the Facebook site, post it in the senior section, whatever.
Thank you.
Because we do want to start with classes. And one of the last things on here is service. What we want to do right at the beginning of the process, as we're recruiting, we could do this, ask them basic questions. How literate are computers? What's your comfort level? How often do you use it? You know, do you use the computer to renew your driving license or whatever? And then we examine that along the way. Oh, this class is scored, and a wrap up at the end. So those students are higher. Because I want to give AARP a very specific, set some objectives, we were able to measure them, we were able to say this. And by the way, we want to do that as well, because if it doesn't have value, there's no point to 20.
Sandy with his project management skills, knows how to do this. Everything would be something like it. Manageable, something. Operable, extractable units, measurable.
Very well.
Yeah, just got there are some lists. I just want to do the big one. At the bottom, with any project, there's always lists. You know, what if we don't get enough computers? What if we get a lot of sign-ups in October, but not in November? Yeah, there's always things we can deal with in a project. Two things left after the agreements. One is financial management. Look at the actual agreement, they say there's some strict rules about how you get this, and either they're factored with old payments or they can fall like payments if they're not satisfied. This is why we do it properly. This is why we're documenting the chart and plan. You know, collecting all these artifacts, making sure we have the financial tracking sheets. So that AAO can't come back and say, well, you shouldn't have said that. We did because we had no criticism, right? So we can de-risk that completely. We can also control spending. Just do a tiny pilot first, one machine, one class, just to make sure everything works before we spend. And the other one is privacy, and this is something I know the town does, but does it match what AAOP are looking for? So what AAOP want to do is just like this one type, they want to release that says that people that stuff he gave us have agreed to be there, so nobody can come back later. AAOP has liability because it's image in some advertising, right? So they're looking for the release. I'm not familiar with the timetable, obviously we post people's images, recordings, and meetings, all sorts of things, so I just want to work with somebody in the town to figure out what that policy is, and then put in place something for this program. Maybe if you sign up for this class, you agree to have your photograph used, or, you know, do it by default, or as a class where we are taking photographs, we have a release, or even we go through the photographs later and chase down everybody that's on the bus and make sure they recover. So there's ways around this, and rather make it for you can use your photo, as you say, so I'm not going to do that, but I wouldn't align it with whatever. So yeah, bottom line is, I think the town and the council on aging really want to do things to the benefits of the speaking community. You know, I can call that one of the strategic objectives. So this increases digital literacy. It gives people useful tools to manage their lives better. I don't know, stuff about it, stuff. We can involve the whole community, the students, the library, professional volunteers, and so on. So basically, this is a good, realistic, achievable program in 2026. Hopefully, we can use it as the basis.
Thank you guys for doing this. Put a lot of work into it. Yes, thank you. Does anybody have any specific questions on this? Sorry.
How are you work?
Oh,
And what I'll do finally is that I say I'm putting one of the stakeholders in this is the council. So, you know, I'll make sure you get at least the ones summary of how things.
sure.
Okay, well, these will be, these things are really.
But we need a formal thought, you know, especially with the.
I'll chat with the principal. So, we got this.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, we're going to try to move on. I think some of these things we've already covered, luckily. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And if you need to leave, you need to leave. I understand it. Okay, Amy?
So I think Karen, you have that, memorandum of understanding for the council. Which was fine. What have it? No, I didn't get anything down saying that something. Oh. I'll bring it next time. Okay.
You know, I gotta say, for the volunteer appreciation next week, all of the COA members will probably be there. Couldn't we sign something then for you?
Sure. Okay. We just said the co-chair.
We'll both be there.
Yeah.
I trust that you went over it and everything's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we can do that. Yeah.
Senior citizen of the year, to date.
Oh, that's more than usual.
That's good. Very good.
We made the decision that we could always go back to previous years.
We haven't, so far, we haven't had to.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you. Yes, we had to, yeah.
With eight choices, we might end up with some ties.
Well, you can say that there are 8 individuals.
Oh, it's eight.
That's right.
I just want to introduce.
Right, let's go. What else you got? You have the senior team?
And actually, I don't even have to mention all these different things, but of those, just wanted to let you know that clothing project that the Low Pleasures is doing on the 9th of June. They've done it before. It's a great program. They come with cut squares. They help you design if you need help designing, but they will take away the materials. They will show the quilt. They will come back 2 or 3 weeks later with a finished product. So it's been a few years since we've been here, but I'm hoping to put a sign up sheet out for that. Still waiting for dates. The Dan Byer, he is Australian. This is for the beach. So for years we would go on Wednesdays. Then last year we did Mondays. Mondays are actually a good day. In fact, I keep pestering him. Yesterday he said, well, maybe Tuesdays. Tuesdays is a tricky day. This is for us to take a van and for staff, for Jen or Shauna to go, and they, seniors love it. And so, last year, I think we pulled off 2 days there. The year before, we had 4 days chosen, but I think it rained every day. We had rain days set up, but, so we'll be working on those, hopefully get that, to you soon. I do have a date for the cookout. It is, I apologize, it's on a Thursday. Our friend Mike is able to form.
Who's gonna do the cooking?
He's gonna do.
So
the
we're
cooking.
all off the hook for that.
July 16th, yeah. I told him we have 2 grills. I was gonna ask Joel, one of our volunteers, to work on getting the grills ready.
Mhm.
Gonna talk to you about, I can't find the right size trays that you have.
I have some at home.
You can show me on Amazon, because I keep whenever I get the small ones.
Okay. If you can't, I'll
And
get these.
that's really all I need to, tell you about that. I think yoga is on a break now till September 14th, so, and I don't know if you but everything else is self-explanatory.
All right, I'm gonna quickly go into open forum. Carol, you have anything from open forum? Carolyn?
Fire department next month for the granted one.
There what?
Fire department got a grant for seniors.
I didn't know that.
I don't know.
Fire department has a grant for seniors?
Yeah, it's a grant for seniors in schools, yes.
I just wondered, do we know what they're doing?
No, this is the first I've
You
heard of
know,
it.
honestly, this is something you get every year and I have to sign off on. Honestly, I think the bulk of the money is kind of used for the kids, but it helps with maybe funding some of the items that they give to us in different programs, the mitts and the, things that say, fire safety.
Oh.
I guess I just noticed they got $823.
The what?
They got $823 for a grant.
I'm trying to get him back and probably won't be until the fall we can get him.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because I haven't heard. Andy, anything for open forum? Yes, Dawn.
Concern on some of our seniors passing away and we don't know. Is there any way that we could let everybody know it's a public thing sometimes, it's not like a secret?
Right.
And sometimes we just want to say a little prayer in heart. Sometimes we want to say something to the person. Like I've met up with 2 people that I didn't know.
Right.
People passed and
I've experienced the same thing. You're absolutely right.
or you hear about it like a few months later, you're like, oh, I hadn't seen.
Could this be something we could associate with the sunshine within housing? We could funnel some information to get it
Could
out.
we have like an in memoriam notice board? Like Tom's little board, or perhaps when the piano goes. We could put an in memoriam board and keep it up to date.
That's a good
Somebody
point.
to keep up with that. Should be.
Well, I think Jen would be,
Yeah.
yeah,
The tricky thing is not everybody has a obituary,
right?
But that's okay, and not everyone will. I thought we would go to some people's things because I only know the person. But just
Right, I know what you're saying. Like, oh, I remember. I missed Linda Chase's because I didn't know about it. I felt terrible after being in the midst of it.
I
But
had no idea, and I saw him and I.
that's a wonderful suggestion. That's a good suggestion. And why don't you talk to Jen and see if that's something that she would be willing to take on?
Okay.
And I
send out a general email to all the friends for members with all the able to help.
Yeah, I think-
This could be.
Yeah, because she sends out the,
Yes, I mean, Anne is wonderful in noting it, but if you don't know,
Yeah.
you don't know.
well.
And I know I told you about it. And I don't know if you've had that. Atkinson passing.
Is anything for open
Dave
forum?
Atkinson.
I do. Home? Okay, what I wanted to say, as the secretary and prime note taker here, with this AI for this, I'd like to know how I'm gonna proceed from now on. The meetings are becoming filled with more and more and more detail, and it's very hard for me to get it all. But the last meeting, the AI, I read it, Amy sent it out, I think we all got it.
We all got it.
And it's so detailed. It's great that it is that detailed, but it's almost too much. And I don't know what I should do to try to.
I think, I mentioned to Amy, there are AI tools.
I like that idea.
You can take the transcript that comes out of here. They render it a brief summary, or summarize this. It cleans it up, it shrinks. I haven't.
I wouldn't have any way of reading it.
Andy just said that. Andy just said that.
You can do
Do a class on it, yeah. Well,
it. There you go.
Yeah.
Got a first candidate.
Okay, I have nothing on open forum. And, the next meeting is June 10th. So I'm gonna close the meeting.
Thank you.
July 1st, Amy's on it. We're gonna meet on July 1st. Is that right there?
Well, let's meet on June 10th first.
Yeah.
All right, adjourned. Thank you all for your patience.
And Andy,
Yes, I know. You saw me roll that. Let's shut this off.
it's not just getting people into computers, it's getting the use of it. I mean, you know, it's now. It's like,